For our healthcare executives out there that are listeners, it would be so great to meet you in person. And that opportunity is coming up in June at our 13th annual Healthcare Executive Forum. It is being held in Madison, Wisconsin. It is the afternoon of June 18th and the morning of June 19th. This year, the topic is how to make high reliability, psychological safety, and just culture simple. And not just make it simple, make it happen. Because what we're known for at Capstone Leadership Solutions is taking big, complex ideas and helping them become practical, doable, and actionable ideas that get positive impact. You can sign up using the link below in the show notes, or you can email us at info@capstoneleadership.net. It would be great to see you there.
I mean, I have to give them all the credit because they're coming up with what everything needs to look like, what order it should be done, how they're going to track it. We have really brilliant people working in our organization, and it's just giving them that voice to be able to say, you know, we've always done it like this, but this is how in reality it actually looks. So I know in leadership, we often think that we have to bring all of the ideas to the table, but sometimes we just have to be better listeners. We hire the best people, so we just need to be able to listen to them more effectively when they have ideas.
Welcome to Culture Change RX, the podcast for healthcare professionals that are committed to creating a thriving workplace culture, improving the experiences of employees and patients, and ultimately unlocking their organization's next level of potential. I'm Sue Tetzlaff, your host and co-founder of Capstone Leadership Solutions. Join me and my insightful guests each week as we share actionable insights for navigating the crucial people side of the business of healthcare. Subscribe now for a weekly dose of Culture Change RX. Now let's dive into this week's conversation where culture change takes center stage. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Culture Change RX. This is Sue Tetzlaff here, the co-founder of Capstone Leadership Solutions and the host of the show. And today I have a guest in the studio. And when we have a guest, we start by having them introduce themselves, and then we get into a topic around the people aspects of healthcare. And we've got a great conversation to be had today with Christen. And so, Christen, please introduce yourself, and then we'll jump right in.
Well, thanks for having me, Sue. I always love to get to talk with you. I am Christin Tenbusch. I have been in healthcare for almost 20 years now, and I've spent the last 13 really focusing on the people aspect of everything that we do. So I started my career in patient advocacy, and then I moved into patient experience, which have expanded into employee engagement and then organizational development. And now I'm a director in human resources at Covenant Healthcare here in Saginaw, Michigan. And I oversee patient experience, employee engagement, like I said, organizational development, recruitment, leadership development, physician engagement, and nursing education. I don't want to forget that because it's vital to our organization. But here in Saginaw, we have about 4,700 staff. We're the biggest employer in the region. So we take our people business very seriously here. I love getting to be over recruitment. That's been a new fun aspect of my job this past year. And we have about 700 employed providers. So we are a very busy organization with about 1 million touches. But a little bit more about me too. I'm certified in patient experience and human resources. I actually just completed not only my master's from Saginaw Valley in healthcare administration, but I also went to Central Michigan and I got a graduate certificate in HR. So you can tell I'm a lifelong learner, but I think I'm just always hungry to get more and more information about how we can help people be their best.
Yeah, combine all that education and then with all your experience. And I love how it evolved. You made a really great point, Christen, about moving from being so involved in the patient experience and how that segued into the employee experience. And that's speaking Capstone language. You know, that's speaking Capstone language. Is that, you can't really improve the patient experience and make it more safe and satisfying without really working in parallel on the employee experience. And So I'm so glad that when you said yes to a podcast conversation, that when we talked about, what could be the focus of this, that it is truly engaging the workforce. I love that. And I know that you're doing some amazing things there at Covenant. You're leading some of those efforts to really engage the workforce. And so I'm just going to let it evolve into a conversation about all the ways that's happening. Where do you want to start?
Gosh. So when I started my role 10 years ago, and I think it's really when patient experience was just really becoming a hot topic, we used to call it patient satisfaction. I'm so happy to hear that we've evolved into really the experience space, because that's what it's really about. And when we looked at, everybody's really focused on the data. And you got to really start looking at the feedback. And then you got to take it a step further and say, okay, so the people doing the work, what do they think? How do they think their interactions with our patients are going? And so we actually started empowering our staff by having a series of focus groups. And so if people aren't doing that yet, I would say that's probably the best place to start. And we started doing our staff focus groups probably back in 2016. And our nurse experience team is still stronger than ever. So that's been probably the most exciting thing that I get to do in my work all the time.
What does this focus group, how do you organize them? Like, give me the nuts and bolts of pulling this off and the value they provide.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll talk specifically about nursing. I put out an appeal to all the nursing managers and said, hey, give me your champion, or even not even your champion, maybe, but the person that has the biggest voice on your unit,
Mm-hmm.
or the person that everybody follows when they have an idea, and bring them. And we're going to have a monthly meeting, and we're going to just see what we can work on. And we had originally started by kind of putting together a nursing bundle. So we said, okay, what is our nursing bundle? Everybody's might be a little different. So we looked at bedside shift report, purposeful rounding. We used narrating care, discharge callbacks, and leader rounds is really our nursing bundle. And so then we started breaking that down and making it an initiative for the organization. So we did all types of fun stuff with it. But it really started as a small group. And now, fast forward almost 8 years later, I still have about 25 nurses around a table. And so they're coming in on their day off. They come in, unheard of, coming in on their day off because they don't want to miss the meeting. They don't want their voice not to be heard. That's empowerment in a nutshell. And I was so happy just last week. I had one of the nurses who she's been on this committee for the whole 8 years. And she said to me that she was so burnt out in her profession. It was, kind of coming to work every day, going home, crying on her way home sometimes. And she said, because of this committee, she actually feels empowered. She feels engaged in her work again, and she's proud to be a nurse. So it's very impactful to have these groups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I do in my work as well, and working with the partner organizations. We work with employee driven teams. I hear sentiments like that all the time, Kristen. We think that people won't give more beyond their day to day job description and their shifts that are assigned and the like. But it's amazing how many employees will raise their hand and say, I'll be part of that. And not only do it begrudgingly, but really, really just be full in. And it makes such a difference. And they feel so proud of the
Oh,
work
yeah.
that they're able to do.
And one of the things that we do at every meeting is what we call a round robin. So we do our topics and we get through everything. And then at the end, we have a chance where we have about 20 minutes reserved where we just go around, tell us the hot topics, tell us the complaints that your unit, what's bubbling to the surface, what's working well, what have we tried recently to enhance our culture, and themes start to resonate with everybody. I heard that too, or what's going on. So we'll talk about those things, but it also allows me a chance to dispel any rumors that are happening, or remind people of the good things that are happening in the organization that I think are lost on people. They say, we have short memories, right? So it's reminding people often of what's going on. One of the things that just came up was violence in healthcare. And these nurses, they feel this safe space. Even though I'm a director of human resources, they feel this safe space after 8 years where they can bring these things up that are happening to them. And we're able to have dialogue about it. And then they're giving suggestions, what if we did this? Or how can we enforce our zero tolerance policy better? And then as a result, the next month, I had our security team come and give a presentation about some statistics we have and what we're doing locally. And they're like, I had no idea. I mean, we've sent some emails and stuff, but maybe they didn't see it. And so they're like, I think they feel heard and they feel seen. And
Mhm.
I think that's why they keep coming back.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. How do the leaders take to this? So we gather up the troops and we have the people that are closest to the patients and the process and the day-to-day work coming together to really make it better. And so what's the role of leaders here?
So I think they were a little hesitant at first. I forget what it's called, but there's this fear that they're going to maybe say something bad about their leadership openly, or they're going to call them out. So they're a little nervous about sending, them into a room to talk about what's happening. But over time, I think they realize that this empowerment is really important. I mean, heaven forbid, right? We give the people who are doing the work the opportunity to be empowered to tell us how they think the work should be done, right? So it's a pretty novel concept, but we've really evolved to kind of flip our hierarchy on its head to say, we have 1,500 nurses here. Let's pass them the baton to see how we can do things. And an example of that would be hourly rounding. They hated the term hourly rounding. And so we said, well, what do we want that to look like? And they said, well, we want it to be purposeful. Yeah. Amen, right? So we really changed the concept from, hourly rounding to purposeful rounding. And we talked about the principles of what that looks like. And our patient feedback improved right away because they said, well, I can do that. But they were fighting back on the hourly part. So we made it work for them and it worked better for our patients too.
Yeah, leading change is hard, changing from we used to do it this way to a new way, like all of the elements of the nursing bundle, taking on new practices to care for our patients differently, but hopefully better. Change is hard, even when we're very motivated and caring and want to do the very best. It's still hard. And a great tactic is do it with them, not to them, and engaging them in the process to really even define what it's called. And that can make a difference to decrease resistance. That's quite amazing.
Yeah, it really is amazing just changing a couple keywords and suddenly, I mean, I have to give them all the credit because they're coming up with what everything needs to look like, what order it should be done, how they're going to track it. We have really brilliant people working in our organization, and it's just giving them that voice to be able to say, we've always done it like this, but this is how in reality it actually looks. So I know in leadership, we often think that we have to bring all of the ideas to the table, but sometimes we just have to be better listeners. We hire the best people, so we just need to be able to listen to them more effectively when they have ideas. And it's
Mhm.
paid off for us in spades. I really do think it has.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've seen it time and time again, and I'm a data geek, so I love to look at all of the ways that things like employee engagement positively affects organizations and their results. And I know one of the things that you recently have also talked about that was done is a big reset on your behavior standards in the organization. And was that also an employee engaged effort, or was that something that the leaders took on?
It was kind of the same concept as the nurse experience team. We took a focus group of people all throughout the organization, and this was probably about the same time frame, so about 8 years ago. And that was really what we wanted to tackle. So we did a series of things with this team. We did some secret shopping. I don't think we called it that. I can't recall what we called it at the time. People don't like that phrase, secret shopping. Heads up. But we did a little bit of walking rounds and just kind of doing an assessment of what our current state was. I think we wanted to know where we really were so we knew where we wanted to go. And so we did that over a series of time. We actually engaged our patient advisors to help us with that too. So we'd have some fresh eyes on it. But we got that feedback and then we looked at what our behavior standards were. We had 5 at the time. Now we have 9. So the team over a series of months worked together. We kind of scrutinized every word when we did it. We wanted to keep it really simple, but also make it so everybody could understand. So now we have 9 concepts. Just last year, each month was a featured item that we distributed throughout the organization, made sure that that was a focus at our safety huddles and things like that. But yeah, it was engaging the team and making sure that they could really feel a palpable engagement in what was happening.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We have one of our partner organizations that's just new in their transformation of their culture and using a similar approach of employee engaged teams. They just finished up their first set of standards of behavior. And it was a little more complex because it's a system in which it's several rural hospitals spread across a big rural
Yeah.
area. And so each hospital had to send representatives to create the one set of standards for the system. So it was a big coordination effort across multiple sites and distance and location, but they got it done. And you're right, when the leaders got a hold of it after the employees did all of this work to really put in writing how they want, everyone to strive to behave with each other, with patients, with visitors and the like. The leaders looked at it and they were really cautious about how much critique or input do we want to give, given how much we know the employees put into this. They had to stop themselves a little bit, I think, to say it's not going to add that much improvement or value if I say to them, we should change this, this, and this. So fine
Well,
line.
that's the best way to disengage a group of people is when they put a lot of work into something that they feel really close to. And then you take it and say, well, no, we're going to do it like this. And I think that as leaders, that's one of our biggest pitfalls is that we feel like we need to, maybe make it how it made sense in our own heads. But sometimes you're far better off in the long run just to let it be what the employee wanted.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know that like the oversight leadership teams that we have in place that are really supporting and empowering and removing barriers for employee driven teams, that it's really a different way for them to approach it is to really be as hands off as possible, yet still provide support. So it's like, how do we provide support yet be empowering and hands off? It's really an interesting dance that they dance. I know that occasionally there are some things, but we let the teams know right up front. It's like, okay, there's this one piece of this that has a regulatory implication or a this where you may not catch on to that or know, and we happen to know, so we'll help you with that. But other than that, we say proceed until apprehended. So yeah, yeah. So, what else is going on to engage your employees to make your place a better place for both employees and patients?
Think about that. Growth and development has been a hot topic here. And what I've noticed in my new role in human resources, in talking with the newer generation of employees, is that not everybody wants to be a manager or a leader like they used to want to be, which I find really interesting. So they'll say, I want to lead projects or I want to be an informal leader of our team, but I don't want to actually have people reporting to me. So I don't
Mm.
know if you're hearing that at all, Sue, but I've been hearing that a lot in the new generation of people we're hiring when we talk to them about their goals. Is that something you're hearing at all?
It probably explains something that we're seeing, which is the increased vacancy rate or the time to fill is quite longer for filling leadership vacancies. And so mainly we work with small and rural healthcare organizations. And as you know, a lot of times their opportunity is to promote within. So if people aren't raising their hands or even aspiring to that, then we've got to think differently about how we organize the leadership and get things done in the organization. And it is amazing how much can be done by employees being willing to be on teams, yet not being a leader or leading a project or part of a project. So maybe in the end, we don't need as many leaders.
I know, well, that, and I'm hearing a lot more of the leadership kind of downsizing of leadership teams. But one of the things, well, a big thing that we're doing is trying to discover how we can upskill people throughout the organization. So growth and development has become really, really important to us. I don't think people realize the pathways that exist in the healthcare sector. I think especially students, we're going all the way back to middle school age to engage with these children to talk to them about healthcare careers. And they're like, well, I just thought it was, doctors and nurses. It's like, well, no, we have so many different things that you can do. So we started different programs here. We have one called Discover Covenant, where we're bringing in graduating high school students and they do a summer rotation. It's paid. And they go through all the different departments of the organization in 4 hour blocks. So 4 hours
Wow.
to 4 days a week, and then they rotate to another area. So that's our kind of external youth pipeline that we're working on. There's a lot of other things that we're doing, but internally, I think employees just want to feel that they belong and that they have a path ahead of them in their organization. And so we're trying to do some more assessments of folks to understand, okay, if you're here today, what would be your next path in your career? And how can we help get you there? So we've kind of informally become an educational institution where we're working with vendors and schools and universities to try to map this out for people. But along that same vein of what I was speaking to earlier, we're trying to create leveled positions. So you might be a level one or level two, you might go to a senior position. So
Mm,
you don't have people directly reporting to you, but you have processes or projects reporting to you, which then makes it easier on the next that level leader who does have the direct reports because they're not worrying about the operations or the logistics components of the job. So that's a big thing we've been focusing on this year, especially as in healthcare. We've all had to get a little creative with our recruitment and retention strategies with what we have.
yeah, yeah. What is the hardest area to recruit right now? I'm just curious in your world, where is the biggest opportunity for or need that you have for workforce?
So, well, nursing always, which includes your CRNAs. I mean, that's a big one too. Respiratory therapy. A night shift nurse is really, really hard to find as well. But outside of that, imaging and diagnostics. So, CT techs, MRI techs, X ray techs, things like that, which, there's a graduated career path in imaging. So, I think just getting more people involved in that field would be really helpful. I would say those are the main ones. Our turnover rate, though, and I think everybody listening would feel the same way. Your entry level positions, I like to call them gateway positions, those have the highest turnover rate. And so for us, what we're doing is breaking down the data to try to understand more of why people aren't able to maintain their status in these positions and why maybe they're not showing up for work. So I think there's some, especially rural healthcare, there's just some community issues that we can help address as employers. So that's, though I would say those are the areas that we mostly struggle in. IT, the IT trades are booming. I think we do really
Mhm.
well. But yeah,
Yeah. Entry level positions, are ones that I know in rural hospitals, whether it's front reception in clinics or whether it's medical assistants,
medical
things
assistant.
like that, phlebotomists, just the registration staff. It just seems like housekeeping.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
really struggle with the turnover rate of all of those. So, being the biggest employer in the region, that's important to us that we're employing everybody and making sure that we can keep them employed. And we're finding it's just some lifestyle or community issues that are occurring. And we've actually engaged with some nonprofits in the region who help with resources. And we're trying to lean into them a little bit more to help our staff. So, this all can't be done in a vacuum either. You have to realize in the area in which you live, there's nonprofits everywhere that are just trying to help people. So many people are struggling now, and employment is really the first best step to securing affordable housing, to putting food on the table, to being able to support your children, and whether it be daycare, educational needs, whatever that might be. That's one of our initiatives this coming year is to learn more about why people are turning over in these gateway positions and try to keep them here. We're exploring a lot of different things, but our turnover is going down. I bet you a lot of hospitals are starting to feel that. And there was a
They are.
really
I'm
rough
seeing
time
that.
after the pandemic, and I think we're coming out of that. But now it's just keeping people in your organization, and culture's everything. If you can get them
Mhm.
there, have a strong culture, you'll be just fine. And I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of turnover and bringing on new people, is that onboarding process. I think that one of the things that really struck me since we've been doing this transformation work of cultures and organizations for now 13 years is we still kind of stay in touch with the very first organizations that we've worked with. And it just amazes me and just delights me actually that they're still just really getting top level patient satisfaction, employee engagement, their turnover is low, and things like that. And their teams are still going, their leaders are still leading these new amazing ways. And, 13 years later, it's still working. And so I really started to ask, like, what are you doing to keep this going? And it shouldn't have surprised me that one of the things that they've really made sure is tight is that when they onboard new leaders, when they onboard new employees, that all of these things like the behavior standards that the employees created, like the nursing bundles that the nursing team created, like the leadership practices that the leaders are being developed in, that those newest people get exposed to it right out of the gate. And that, they're the first ones maybe to grab onto it because they're in learning mode. They're in, let's figure out how they do things here. So they're probably going to resist it less than somebody that's been there
Yeah,
for 30 years. So,
absolutely.
what are you doing that's exciting in the world of onboarding? I'm curious
Well,
about that.
I'll go back to nurses again. We introduced a phased approach to onboarding. So we have phase one and phase two. And I think it allows us not only to do constant assessments about where they're at and move them through orientation at a pace that's appropriate for them, but it gives leaders a chance to have checklists and competencies in front of them and really sit with the nurse and go through these things. So we have core orientation, and then they move into these phases of orientation. And there's whole packets that the educators have put together that the leaders use. And it's been really, really successful for onboarding our nurses with our expectations, our culture, and then because they're clinical and touching patients, those competency portions of it. For the rest of the staff, we have a standard orientation. It's one day as you'd expect. And then at 30 days, they get an onboarding survey asking about their onboarding experience. Was the job consistent with what you applied for and what you expected? Did your leader engage with you on day one? Do you feel like you were given the resources and tools to do your job right away? Do you feel like you're contributing to the organization in our mission and values? So it asks all these questions, and we've started getting feedback. And what I love about it is they're telling us in the free text, like, oh, you should try this, or it would have been nice if I had this. So one of the feedback that we've already received is, I wish that on day one I received just a short checklist of all the things I need to do in my first week on the job. And I'm like, that's a great
Yeah.
idea. Again, novel concept, right? So we're going to hopefully be implementing that soon. We just received that feedback. And then we do a 90-day survey. And the 90-day, the question I care about the most is, do you plan on staying at Covenant Health? And so getting that feedback. So far, we've gotten a lot of really good feedback and a lot of really positive feedback. But if you're not doing life cycle surveying or some type of onboarding surveying, I
Mhm.
highly recommend it. I think we will take a lot of the feedback that we get and reduce that first year turnover, because we finally have that feedback on that life cycle experience.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and that is historically one of the big turnover times is in that first year or 2, and so, yeah, staying close to those people and really grabbing their ideas about what could make this experience better because it's a big life stressor to take on a new job, and
Yeah.
so they have the stress of that, and they wanna do well, and we could either help that or make it a little harder for them as they
Well,
join
and the
our
hard
organization.
part today is there's so many options for people. They might start here. That doesn't mean that in a week they might accept a job somewhere else. So you have to really make sure your organization is shining when you have new hires coming in, and you have to make them feel that sense of belonging. Like we like to say, we're a family. We have to prove it. We have to prove it to them day one. And so how do you welcome new staff to your area? We got to really roll out the red carpet anymore for new people coming in, and as we should.
Mhm. Yeah. 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 It's hard to be the new guy. We've all been there. So I told you 30 minutes goes by really fast and it does. So I'm wondering if as we're wrapping up here, Kristen, if is there any other things that you wanted to make sure that you shared with the world about what you're doing there in your role at Covenant or what the organization is doing to really engage and lead in new creative ways that's really satisfying to staff and gives great care to patients.
Well, I think I'd just be remiss if I didn't mention engaging the C suite in your organization. So I've talked a lot about engaging the frontline staff, but having the executive team or the C suite actually speaking the same language is really important. So I could sit here all day and tell you how important it is to have frontline staff focus groups and letting the people who do the work guide the work. But if your C suite comes behind you and says something totally different or doesn't know this work is happening, you've really shot yourself in the foot. So it's really, really important that they know that this work is happening. One of the things that we do is a lot of loop closure. So we'll track some of the activities that we've done, the outcomes of it, where we're at in the process, and we share that with leadership so that everybody knows what's happening. I think that would probably be the last thing that I just
Mm,
want to make a point to, is making sure your C-suite knows what's happening, because it's good stuff. They want to know
yeah.
about this good stuff, and even get it to the board of directors. Make sure they know the good stuff that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So much good happening. I'm so glad we had the opportunity to talk about that today and highlight it. And thanks for being my guest.
Oh,
Thank
thanks, Sue.
you.
Any
Yes, we're cheering your organization on to much success and you too in your role there. And thanks for your contributions to the podcast. Thanks, Kristen.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sue.
Thanks for tuning in to Culture Change RX. If you found value in today's episode and you are a believer in fostering change in healthcare, join us in making a difference. Follow, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with colleagues and your network. Together, we can make a lasting impact. Until next week, keep inspiring positive change. We know that healthcare executives have their sights on high reliability, just culture, and psychological safety. In true capstone fashion, we're all about helping simplify the complex and helping entire healthcare organizations execute successfully on big, bold initiatives such as these. One such way that we can help is through our upcoming Healthcare Executive Forum. In its 13th year, this forum has been helping healthcare executives learn proven approaches for executing successfully on big, bold initiatives. So, whether you're just starting your journey to high reliability or well on your way, this event has something for everyone. Our time honored commitment is that every attendee leave with an actionable and impactful plan that they can just start when they get back to the office the next day. The event is on June 18th and 19th in Madison, Wisconsin, and you can go to capstoneleadership.net and under the resources page, look for the details on our upcoming events. Plan now for you and your executive team to attend.